Hello, I'm Jerry. I'd like to talk about relative strength and how I use it and basic concept and what it's really telling you. Um, Relative strength metric shows up on the watch list, and it's a concept originally I saw James Boyd use, but I had also seen it from other presentations, and I added the colorization of the cells and indicated this is a percentile as opposed to just an absolute number. And relative strength, what it means is that it takes the ratio of the closing price of the stock, and it takes that closing price and it divides it by some reference index. In this case here, I'm using SPX. And then it does it over some time period. So if you look on the watch list, you can see this is for 5 bars and 10 bars and 21 bars and 63 bars. And the percentile, the number that's shown in here, is really a rank or a percentile of where the current price is, how it's been performing with regards or in comparison to the SPX index. And so if you look at it, here's a case for Goldman Sachs. On this particular day, if you count back, we're looking at the last 5 bars. So if you go back and you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you look down here at this line and you compare this ratio of the closing price of the stock to the current closing price of SPX, you get a number. It doesn't matter what the number is. The number doesn't really matter. It's where that number sits over time. So in our particular case, I'm showing that number where it's at, and for this time period, we look at the very top of the range, and we look at where the bottom of this range is for the last 5 days, and we ask ourselves, well, where do we sit? Well, we're sitting on this bar, which happens to be sitting at about the 6th percentile for that particular range. So here it is for the relative strength for the last 5 days. 5.7 is what it shows. And the color code, the colors the cells are colored in accordance with the strength of the plot. So for the last 5 days, we were sitting at 6. If you move it to the next grid, basically this is for the last 10 days, and you go out and do the same exercise. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's around here. Well, let's count them all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so there's 10 days back. And you look at the high dots for that time period, and you look at the low dots for that time period, and you ask yourself, well, where do I fit in that range of numbers? I'm sitting at around the 66th percentile, and it means that my stock's been holding up pretty good. It's still a little better than the SPX, which is what it's showing us. Initially it started out that SPY was here and we were there, but as we move through from the 10 days back to current day, we've actually increased in rank over the SPX. So Goldman Sachs has done very well over that time period, and we're sitting at the 66th percentile. So the way you use these things is to basically, you can just look at the colors. That part is pretty cool. So we saw that the first 10 days first 5 days were not so good. If you go back 10 days, you get a little higher strength, and if you go back 21 or even back as far as this is 21 days, happens to be around a month, and if you compare it to what we were at 63 days, which is 3 months back, it's moving up in strength. And in the big picture, if you look at the top high flyers, Tesla's been at 100% relative strength well, pretty much it's been in the green zone for pretty much the last 3 months. And at the bottom of the S&P 100, you can see that some of these poor guys are just really struggling. They can't get out of their own way. They're struggling down here, and you can see that the colors are looking pretty puny. So the takeaway from it is that relative strength is telling you not only how are you doing from an absolute basis for weekly gains versus monthly gains, but it's also telling you how are you doing with relationship to the index, which is very important because you always want to compare yourself to the nominal value. In any case, that's the short story on relative strength. I should mention that I don't use this value down here. I don't put this on the chart. I only look at where relative strength shows up on the watch list. So it never shows up on any chart because it's very hard to kind of see. Whereas the computations and the colorization of those numbers actually make a lot more sense on the watch list. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.